Okay, this is Wild with All Regrets by Wilfred Owen. And when I first saw the title, I thought that the author would be filled with regrets from, some time when he acted wild in his life. And when I first read it, it was really personal. Like, he starts it out with saying, my arms, my fingers, my back. And he uses, like, a few examples of alliteration. Like, he says, my fingers fidget because he's trying to put emphasis on his point, and he uses like a simile. Like, he uses a lot of literary devices in the first stanza. And basically what this poem is about is it's like a monologue addressed to a friend who stands close by the speaker as he lies dying of injuries sustained in war. And he's basically talking about how death has affected him and how like it hurts the people around him, and how he's filled with regret because he can't accept or get past all the regrets he has from war and everything he missed out on when he was at war. Like, he talks a lot about mundane activities and stuff because he wants to express that he's full of sorrow and regret. Um, like, for example, he says, like, shooting and hunting, all the arts of hurting. He, like, really puts a strong negative connotation throughout the whole poem, especially in the first stanza. He draws a lot on personal experience to try and get, like, an emotional response out of the readers, whereas in the second stanza, there's more of a fulcrum, and he kind of switches points of view. Like, he goes from first person to second person to third person because he's talking about his personal experiences. He's talking about one of his friends dying, and then he's talking to just the audience in general. And while I was reading this, I was looking for, some kind of positive connotation, but almost the entire thing is negative. Like, he talks about, he says death, dirt, and dust a lot, and he says bloody a few times. He puts an emphasis that war was crazy and bloody, and that he regrets not only things that happened, but things that he did, and how death has affected him personally.
And one of his kind of biggest regrets is, it says in the first stanza, we said we'd hate to grow dead old, but now not to live old seems awful. So people are always saying how they don't want to grow old and they don't want to grow up, but now when he's laying in this hospital or in this setting and he knows that he's going to die, he only has, minutes, days, whatever he has, then not being able to grow old is what seems awful. So that's kind of ironic, and it goes against what people used to say. And then in the war that he was in, young boys were drafted and he was sent off to war when he never really got the chance to grow old. And then the next line, what, like Danielle said, when he brings up shooting and hunting, all the arts of hurting, and that's negative, but then it goes along with what he's saying, that he isn't going to be able to teach his boys. It says, my boy, not to renew my boyhood with my boys and teach him hitting, shooting, and hunting, all the arts of hurting. So it seems kind of ironic, maybe morbid, that he wants to teach those things to his boys that used to be fun to him, but then once he went to war, that kind of became his life. And then in the second stanza especially, he kind of picks up a sarcastic tone, because it starts with, yes, there's the orderly, he'll change the sheets when I'm lugged out, oh, couldn't I do that? And he's kind of talking about how he wishes that he could just kind of do the easy jobs forever if that meant that he could live longer and have a life that wasn't always surrounded by war. And then the rest of that stanza goes through and talks about all these different jobs, the different ways that he would prefer to be living his life, even if they're just the simplest, low-paying jobs. He says that he would do anything, even like he says a flea would do if one chap wasn't bloody and he brings back blood, or went stone cold, I'd find another body. So he was like willing to do anything, and it says that he would ask no nights off when the bus was over. He would work until he was so busy that he didn't have anything else to do, but he doesn't care as long as it would be promising him more life that he's not going to get now because of the war.
Yeah, and this poem's kind of interesting because it doesn't have a rhyme scheme, but at the end of every line, it begins with the same letter almost every time. Like, he begins the end of the first two lines are brutes and brats, and then another one is like hitting, hurting, money, many. So I think he's just really trying to put an emphasis that, you know, how much it's affected him, and he wants the readers to really understand, like, how he repeats dust and dirt. It represents both life and death, and how the man will become dust after death because war scarred the author.
And then another literary device that he uses, and it kind of makes it more personal and makes the reader think, is he uses a lot of rhetorical questions. He uses them throughout all the stanzas, but for example, it says, "Is one too hard to spare, too long?" And then when he talks about the orderly, "Oh, couldn't I do that?" And then again, less live than specks that in the sun shafts turn. So he kind of asks questions in the introductions of different stanzas to kind of grab the attention and kind of show his inner thought, not just kind of what he's thinking, and it makes the reader think more too. So what do you think, like, the overall meaning at the end? Like, how does it make the reader feel at the end?
I mean, I think he just really wants people to think about not only death, but life, and how to treat life, and to always live life to the fullest, because you won't always get that chance. Like, he talks about, he uses a lot of personification, especially when he's talking about his amputated limbs, saying that amputees often report feeling limbs that are no longer present. So I think he's trying to say that he wants to feel something that he can't exactly feel.